often what I want to say doesn't come to me until I sit down about a minute before. There's a moment of anxiety there where I think, oh, maybe nothing will come. But I can always be quiet, right? But I was just bearing witness to each person's stillness as they arrived. And it dawned on me that we don't really see our loveliness, our beauty, until we're still. And that really stillness reveals virtually the essence of everything. And the busyness, the commentator, the busy narrative, is the mind's attempt to bring that beauty forward. Because to be still is to be ruinous to the mind. It's to take away its power, it's to take away its field of perception. And so there's a mental film on life, and we stop and we'll say, oh, that's really beautiful. And it's what we have learned culturally to call beauty. And it's within the context of the fabrication of mind, the conditioned reference to things. But then we fall into stillness at some point. And suddenly the world opens up in a way that has beauty everywhere. So it's not as if there's a definition of beauty. It's carried within the stillness. It's not a description. It's a quietude. It's a way of perceiving. Nothing is devoid of beauty. How could it be? And one way we can introduce that is to take what is culturally defined as beauty, perhaps a flower, and just be still with it. And watch the descriptive beauty transcend itself into the beauty of stillness. And then take that gaze and look upon anything. And you'll see that it carries, the stillness is not lost. Wherever the awareness alights will be the disclosure of that beauty. Now that's also true internally for us. We have a cultural description or historical description of what it means to look beautiful inside. Kind, sweet, helpful. Kind of like being a Boy Scout or a Girl Scout. You're trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. So, where is there beauty in all of that? Because all I see is burden and pressure. So even the question brings forth the beauty, doesn't it? Where is the beauty in here? If it's everywhere else, well, that's fine. But it must be here as well. I can't leave anything out. And we see that far more difficult than looking at a tree and seeing the stillness and then the beauty of that tree is to look at ourselves with any kind of quietude and stillness so that we can see the beauty that's inherent, intrinsic, in what it is that we are perceiving. Especially when it comes together as a packaged entity. It's okay. We may be able to quiet enough with individual parts of this entity, the emotion, the sensations of body. But if it keeps coming back, it keeps piecing itself together in terms of the narrative of me, it never feels quite beautiful enough. And we can induce metta to try to level the playing field so that we have some appreciation, and that certainly can be helpful. But what we want to do is to see this thing in its intrinsic form. And to do that, we have to be quiet. We have to be still with it. And then it's equivalent to the swaying of a pine tree in the wind. Or the falling of a leaf. How do we get to that stillness with it, though? It seems like a paradox, because the more we try to intone beauty in, the more distant we feel from it, because we have created an ideal of what it must look like in order to be beautiful, and we then, in comparison to where we are, look at that goal we have set and fall in despair. But stillness doesn't hold that. It doesn't hold somewhere beauty is going to be more beautiful. It doesn't hold what this form looks like in comparison to the forms around it. That's not beauty. That's cultural conditioning perspective. And so we learn that beauty cannot be carried in the narrative. It can't be carried in what I say about things. It's carried in the awareness itself. And the more noise, when we come upon something that we carry a lot of belief about, the noise is so layered that the beauty seems very remote. Especially when we deal with ourselves. The history, the layers of unmet expectation. And as we get quieter, we become less defined. The narrative has held us together in an unbeautified way, but as a distinct way. We know ourselves from the person next to us because in comparison we sit better than they do. And as we allow ourselves to come into stillness, to come into quiet, to come into deep, abiding stillness, what is left after the story has dissipated, after the smoke is cleared, is the residence of sacred. That stands in perfect solitude, holding each and everything, confirming its beauty. And that, my friends, is where this comes from. The hands together in the bow.